Okay, class, this lesson is chapter 8.4a, which is the circumference of circles. Circumference means the distance around a circle. Sometimes it is called the perimeter of a circle, depending upon what book you are in. Again, you want the outside distance around the circle, so that would be a perimeter, because a perimeter is an outside distance. One of the other things that you're going to have to use whenever we work with circles is the word pi, although it's usually the symbol. That is a ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. Now again, you got to go back to chapter 7, where we talked about circles. And remember that a diameter is a chord, a line segment, that goes all the way through the circle, and it passes through the center point. We are going to be using the terms diameter and ratio in this chapter over the next couple lessons. We actually have two formulas to use for circumference, and it depends upon whether they show us the radius or the diameter. Now, if you really can't remember that, here's a circle going through the center point. This is a diameter if it goes all the way across the circle. We have another circle, center point just out to the outside of the circle. That's going to be your radius. Okay? The first example is to use 3.14 for pi. Now, you can use several different things for pi. You can use 3.14. You can use 3.1416. You can also use 22 over 7. And to be honest with you, you should have a pi key on your calculator. If you look along the left-hand column of keys, starting from the bottom all the way up, you will go past the 7, what's parallel to the 7, and then it should be the pi key, kind of a couple keys up or so from your number pad. I would suggest you take the time. If you need to, hit pause, go find that pi key, because sometimes they will ask you to use the pi key. All right, here we go, folks. Like I said, we have two formulas. Because they show us the radius here, I am going to be using circumference equals 2 pi r. If you remember, 2 times the radius equals the diameter. So that's where the 2 comes from. We are going to use 3.14 for pi because they tell us to. And my radius here is 5. Now, don't grab that calculator so fast. Remember, 2 times 5 is 10. You can do that. Remember, we can commute and move numbers around if we multiply. 2 times 5 is 10, and 10 times 3.14 is a shortcut. All you need to do is move your decimal point one place to the right. So our answer here is going to be 31.4 feet. Okay, now here you got to be careful. You'll notice that I didn't use an exponent of 2 here. We are not dealing in area. We are dealing in the distance around something. The distance is in feet, miles, inches, yards, millimeters, centimeters. A unit. We don't talk about the distance from Randolph to Cambria, for example, as 7 miles squared. We talk about the distance from Randolph to Cambria as 7 miles. Let's look at example 2 here. In fact, I would suggest you hit pause and you do this one. All right, did you get 125.6? Look carefully at the formula, how you substituted. Does it look like mine? Let's move on to the next example. First thing you should notice here is you have a diameter here. The second thing you should notice is they're telling you to use something different for pi this time. This time they want you to use 3.1416. We're going to switch to the second formula, which is pi d. Remember that the diameter is 2 times the radius. So if we're using the radius, we use the 2r. If we're using the diameter, we use the d. Circumference here is going to be 3.1416 times the diameter of 9. Yes, you probably have to put this through a calculator. And you will have 28.8 2744. Now remember, we're not talking area, so it's just meters. Now, you're going to have to watch out in directions. Sometimes they will tell you to round off. We didn't see that in the directions here, so you don't have to round off. If they tell you to round off, it's usually because you're going to use the pi key. Because if you use a pi key, and go ahead and try it. Hit pause, go ahead and do it. Hit the pi key, look what you get. You get a long, long, long number, and then times 9, and see what happens to your answer. So go ahead, hit pause, and try that. Okay, so now you know why it's sometimes important for us to know what we're supposed to use for pi, or to be very careful in the directions to make sure that we round off to the place value we're supposed to. One of the other things we can use for pi is 22/7. And there will be times when this is required. They will tell you to do it. Usually it's because your diameter or your radius is a multiple of 7 and you will be able to get some canceling. Now here again, you've got to always be looking. You have a diameter. Again, you have to be very observant in geometry. Okay, so we're going to be using pi d. 22/7 times 21. If it helps, go ahead and put it over 1. There's nothing wrong with that. This 7 cancels with the 21 to make a 3. Now you have 3 times 22, which is mental math. That's 66, and in this case, we have yards. Now, I'm going to point out to you that in the assignment, they don't tell you what to use for pi, so you have your choice. Some students will use 3.14. Other students will use the pi key. You might get a slightly different answer if you use the pi key versus 3.14. What's really strange is they never give you an example using the pi key, but in the assignment, they actually expect you to use the pi key. So when you see the solution for this assignment, you will see that I give you both the one for pi and, if it's slightly different, for 3.14. Sometimes it will be slightly different for 3.14. The second thing that we're going to be doing in today's lesson is working with estimating the diameter if we are first given the circumference. Now again, this is estimation, and we're going to end up dividing because we're going to substitute into the formula and find we have to divide. So therefore, we are going to use 3 for pi because that's going to be your divisor. But then, remember, you want to pick a compatible number for c because you want to be able to divide very easily with mental math or with paper pencil. Maybe it'll be a little bit clearer when I show you what we do. Again, we're trying to find the diameter, so that kind of tells us we want to use the pi d formula. Now again, we want to use 3 for pi. So I'm going to put the 3 in here first. We don't know the diameter. You know good and well that we are going to have to divide this by 3. If, for example, we had 3d equals some number over here, you would divide both sides by 3. Therefore, this number up here, we want to have a dividend that's pretty easy to divide by 3, which is why I say take this 62.8 and figure out what multiple of 3 is really, really close to 62.8. Now we know that 60 is divisible by 3, but 63 is also a multiple of 3, and it's closer to 62.8. So I'm going to use 63 in there. Now I can divide both sides by 3, and d will equal 21 feet. Now if you want to use approximation signs in here, that's okay too. That kind of tells the reader that you are estimating. So let's try B. In B, they are going to give you circumference equals 50 inches. We want the diameter. Circumference equals pi d. We use 3 for pi. Now, what number is close to 50 and is also a multiple of 3? 3, 6, 9, 12, 18, etc., etc., etc. The closest one is going to be 51. So we will divide both sides by 3, and d will actually be about, our diameter here, is going to be about 17 inches. Let's look at C. Again, circumference equals pi d. We want 3 for pi. Don't know diameter. Now, what number close to 8 is easily divisible by 3? Okay, that's going to be 9. Divide both sides by 3, and d will equal approximately, or be approximately, 3 miles. And that concludes lesson 8.4a. Again, just a reminder that on the assignment, especially the first part of the assignment, they have used the pi key to calculate the circumference. So if you wish to do that, go right ahead. And if you would please respond with parallelograms. Catch you next time.